Hey.
I'm almost bringing it down. Hang on. Here we go. I got distracted. You cracked me up.
I was thinking about the laughter yoga yesterday. I said, I need to do some laughter yoga.
Right?
Yeah, that felt
Right?
good.
Just reminding ourselves to laugh and play. I love that. How are you,
Yes.
my friend?
I'm great. I'm super excited to be here. And last week I was here, Christine. Battery had died on my car, only had pineapples. I said, where's Christine? I'm falling apart.
Oh no!
Not
I
really, but I needed to be more
so
full.
missed you and our listeners last week. It was so weird for the first time in 2 years not to be
Mhm.
live on a Wednesday, right? I mean, we've
Yes.
had our holiday breaks and stuff, but
But
it
you
was
have been here.
it was wild, and it's such a
Yeah.
part of my routine and my rhythm. I was like, oh, okay. And I will confess, right at the very end, I checked
Mhm.
in because I
Mhm.
realized what time it was. I was in Colorado, so I was 2 hours behind, and y'all were still going, and it was
Yeah.
y'all were just wrapping up, and it made me
Mhm.
smile. And yeah, but I was exactly, it was where I needed to be doing elder
Good.
care, moving my
Yes.
folks, and doing that wellness piece, right? Because when we talk about wellness, sometimes even the good stuff is
Right.
beyond our capacity some weeks. And so knowing what do we need in that moment? What do we
Absolutely.
need to say no to, right?
Yeah.
As we
Yeah.
talk about in Still Point. But
Yeah, and we talked about still point last week too, the sorting and separating. It reminds me of How Full Is Your Bucket, the book I read when I started at Topgolf, and how everything either pours or it takes from it. And if you're in a certain season, given the context, it makes sense that maybe the good thing might pull a little bit and you need to pour somewhere else, so let's pivot. No
I
problem.
love that. How full is
Yes.
your bucket? Very
Hmm.
cool. Well, should we do our intro and get this party started?
Let's do it. Let's
All
do
right,
it.
let's
Hi,
do it.
ladies. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial entrepreneur and Amazon bestselling author, the founder of Shalo Glow LLC, an all natural handmade personal products company that helps people with dry skin glow from head to toe. I'm your champion for natural self care, business care, and intentional wellness.
Hi, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, Amazon bestselling author,
Mhm.
and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Yes. Together, we are a podcast rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness and the co founders of Women Connected in Wisdom Community.
And we like to get together every week for intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. And we love to
Yeah.
bring on expert guests that help us with these questions of like, how do we do this?
Yes. Whew. And especially with social wellness, I would love to give the definition to go ahead and jump into this conversation because I'm excited about our conversation, the guest conversation. It's going to be good.
Right? I have to tell you, honestly, I'm a little overwhelmed with the news this week. I mean, I
Okay.
know I'm coming in exhausted from all
Yeah.
this elder care, but just the world right now and social wellness is big,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like how do we do this? So you want to jump in with the definition?
Absolutely.
Let's do
S-
it.
Social wellness is about the ability to nurture ourselves, others, and our relationships with healthy boundaries. It includes balancing the other 7 dimensions of wellness and actively participating as an interdependent being in the web of life.
Mhm. I love that definition.
Me
I
too.
think our guest is going to too.
Yeah.
All right,
Yes.
I want to bring her up because I am so delighted to introduce our audience to our guest today.
Let's do it.
Gwynneth VanLaven, they is an artist, activist, and facilitator whose practice includes photography, installation, writing, performance, and social engagement. VanLaven received her BA in multimodal language, an independent cross disciplinary major with a minor in photography, and an MFA, a Master's of Fine Arts, from George Mason University in critical art practice, also a multimodal study. VanLaven taught at the School of Art at George Mason University until relocating to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where they now study at the University of Michigan for a Master of Social Work in Interpersonal Practice and Community Change. Can y'all tell already why I love them? Like art and social work? Hello.
Right?
Okay. Alongside studies, Gwyneth is creating and leading for Interplay, which whoop whoop,
Whoop.
interplay.org, and Danceability Detroit, whole mind body forms drawing on self and other inquiry and connection.
Mhm.
Gwyneth's visual and written works have been shown in numerous exhibitions and publications nationally and globally, including in the Washington Post and Performance Research, and at the Smithsonian Institution and the Kennedy Center. In addition to solo art practice, VanLaven worked as part of the Floating Lab Collective and now joins a University of Michigan group, the Self Healing and Social Justice Art Collective, comprised of artists dedicated to social engagement and activism through interactive and inclusive art. I am so delighted to have this conversation and welcome my friend and colleague Gwynneth to the stage.
Hi, Gwynneth.
Woohoo!
You always wonder who that is that you just introduced, right? Where
Right?
is that
Right?
incredibly accomplished person?
It's you.
It sounds really
It's
great. I don't know if I resemble that remark, but we'll
you
I
do.
hope
You
so.
do.
Yes. One of our authors in volume one says her chapter was "You Do Know," and you do know, Gwen, if that's you, you resemble it.
Right?
All right,
Right?
I'm stepping
Mhm.
into it. All
Yeah,
right. Thank
Right?
you for having me.
of course. Super excited for you to be here.
Oh, I'm
We're
so
so
honored.
delighted to have this conversation about the power of art in the body
Yeah.
and social wellness. And as Shannon was reading the definition, we were just talking before the show about interdependence and social wellness. And how did you get into this, Gwyneth? Like, how did you become this artist and social activist?
Mm. So I've had pain my whole life, and a lot of undiagnosed illness. So I had a lot of just curiosity and consternation about my body. And I wanted to communicate this extent and type of pain that I had so that the doctors would understand. And I just couldn't get it across in my words as a toddler, and as I grew, no matter what language I found, I couldn't express what was going on with me. And so I started to turn to art, and I turned to all sorts of modalities.
Yes.
I looked into the body, and I looked at from my body to other bodies, and it just seems natural that the limitations of sort of the written form or the spoken form can be transcended by all sorts of multimodal arts.
I love how you word that. And especially because when I was reading about you and getting to know your work, that multimodal was so interesting to me because I always think about like social media, graphics. How are you intaking my information as a business owner, right? If I'm looking at MailChimp, I'm thinking about email and your either laptop or your phone. But how you talk about multimodal and the different ways to communicate, can you go more into that and how it ties into the art and the body?
Mm. Okay, so I'm first thinking about when you're talking about business, I was thinking about teaching. So I had some time as an art professor, and the learning styles and the way that if you're trying to get something across, you need to have that sort of multi-platform approach that you're talking about, right? You're going to teach to the visual, you're going to teach to the
Right.
kinesthetic, and all of our forms, and so I guess in the body, our bodies don't just take in information through our ears or through our eyes, right? I mean, we are whole systems. My cells are taking on information,
Yes.
and I think it's really a disservice we do. I think it started with Descartes. Maybe we can get into that whole thing, but
Right.
we it's also maybe a little patriarchal. We think of like the women sort of from the neck down, and the men are up in the mind and the brain. And so I'm like, you
Yes.
know what, we are a whole system, and we need to approach this from a multimodal standpoint.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and when I think about, I was having this conversation earlier with my partner. A lot of times I think about conditioning, right? Especially being passionate about psychology. And when you look at shows, when you look at movies with women, they start either at our behind or in our chest, right? You don't start at the face. It's slow zoom up, right? And then you're met with whatever happens at the face, which is usually a slip of the word. She's not smart enough to hold a complete sentence or paragraph together. And then it's on to the next thing. When the man is this knowledgeable and sturdy, depending on the archetype and the character, right? But usually they don't zoom up from their behind. So it's absolutely what you're saying. I hear it and I see it.
That is so. What a great perception. I haven't really noticed that, and I
Yes.
can see it in my mind's eye when you're describing it.
Hmm.
Totally. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So when you think about the power of art, right? I hear you on, I didn't know how to communicate it. I tried, it wasn't working. They weren't hearing the pain that I was in. I didn't know how to describe it. How do you go from there to sitting in your power and having the power and knowing how to wield it and how to communicate it?
So I think one thing I do is play. We You introduced play beautifully. Play in art. I think because we are not conditioned enough already to, like, we're not expecting like this is what it's going to be. We can have like those sneaky entry points through art to
What do you mean?
when I approach like a painting, I don't
Mm,
know how it's going to speak to me.
mm,
I might have some idea, oh, this is impressionism, or oh, this is abstract, or whatever. But especially the interactivity, art as social activism that I like to do, these sort of like events or happenings or interventions.
yes,
So yeah, I don't know what to expect, and
that
so
makes sense.
that surprise allows for so much.
Mm. I was having this conversation with somebody earlier, and they were talking about how sometimes you having experience in something can make you hesitate because of however it turned out the last time. So are you saying that when you come up and are introduced to something and you have no expectation, you're freer to play and see what happens?
I think so. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, because once we have an expectation, we prejudge, and
Yeah.
then it's done, right? I I see that a lot in the way people. So I'm a person with a disability, and I use a mobility chair.
Mhm.
And I my service dog just passed, but with the
Wow.
service dog, um, so people, they see us and they think they know me, right?
Mm,
And so when you were talking about like the panning up, I was feeling that, like, oh
mm.
yeah, that's right. They look at the dog, they look at my chair, and then
Yeah.
it's like, hi, and I'm here. I'm
Right.
here. And so if there's some way, I can approach, maybe with a mask on or wearing a really funky hat, as a weird example,
Yeah.
or a band of people doing something silly, like a one person band. My wheelchair is playing an accordion as it rolls.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
All of a
Play with
sudden
it.
we've shifted our expectations to something that we don't even know what to expect, and then that's where opening things open up. You can't write me off, or set.
Yes. I hear you.
Well,
I'm
and what
free
a
to
great
express from here.
way to start a conversation, right?
Mhm.
One of the things I love, Gwyneth, when I look at your website, which we're going to put in our show notes and I'm showing on the screen right now, is VanLaven Art. Will you tell folks about your pity parties and how you use art to process big stuff?
Yeah. So I'll start with this just happening in life. Well, actually, we just held a pity party. The Self Healing and Social Justice Art Collective, at the university. At University of Michigan, held our final variety show, and it was a big pity party, and we had a piñata, and that we beat the heck out of that pinata, because that was the oppressions that we felt. That
Yeah.
was all of the hurts from small to big. And, I think it puts us on that leveling ground because we can all relate to having hurts. And so I was going to tell you before I describe the party, um, something that just happened. I was just stopping for food on my way home from physical therapy, and I could tell the guy at Wendy's seemed to be really struggling. Like it was a long shift, and it was one of those days. And so in our exchange of like, "Hey, how's it going? How are you?" It was not "Fine, thanks, and you," or "Hey, great, have a wonderful day. Isn't it a beautiful sun shining day?" It was, "I'm just on the right side of the dirt today, and that's all I could manage." Or,
Yeah.
whatever it is, that acknowledgement of pity that it
Hmm.
is like life kind of sucks sometimes. There's a lot of crud going on, and just acknowledging with each other interdependently that, like, wow, okay, this is tough. Like,
Yeah.
it's tough sometimes. And so the pity party is just an art expression of that acknowledgement that, yeah, we're in this together, and this is not an easy road.
No. And what I love about it is that the name is Pity Party, and we talk about pity parties, right? So I love that people get it and it gives them the freedom to feel how they feel because a lot of people struggle with that. But what I love too is that it doesn't, for me, it hasn't brought on pity for the situations that I'm in or my friends, right? It's brought empathy. So it's called the pity party, but I think that in my experience, again, what I've seen is it's a vehicle for empathy. I want to tell you the story, Gwyneth, because I had a pity party and we had a pinata too. So I heard about your tool. I said, that's perfect, right? And my best friend's mom. So part of the backstory, right? And this is trigger warning for like chronic illness and stuff like that, because it's difficult for some people to talk about. But my mom passed away from cancer right before COVID in November. And then 7 months later, after that, my best friend's mom passed away. Her mom had a house. It's a beautiful thing when you're talking about generational wellness, assets, and things that we work towards building, right? But sometimes it could be difficult to handle when it's given in a certain situation, right? So we're working through this. We had gone through the house being sold and it was not ideal. And so I said, you know what? We are amazing at being positive and being optimistic and knowing that everything works out for our good and knowing that it's going to work itself out even if I don't see it, but sometimes that's difficult. So I went to Dollar General and got a rainbow pinata and got some envelopes. And I said, I want you to write out whatever you're upset about. Didn't get this piece of mail, upset about this, right? Sold, whatever you want to say. I put some envelopes in. She put some envelopes in, and we went to the backyard and strung it up on this little branch that was barely trying to hold on. You gonna hold on for this pinata, right? And so we put it on the branch, and I spun her around, and yeah, we beat the rainbow, so it was really helpful.
Oh, that's brilliant. I would love to have you at mine, or I at your. We
Yeah.
should combine a
Yes.
great party. Wow! And how did you feel afterwards? I'm just curious. Like, was it cathartic or?
It was. It was definitely cathartic. I think it was cathartic for her. It was for me because I didn't realize this because it was her childhood home, right? But it was mine too because we moved around so much. So there is no house that's like, oh, this is my childhood home. It's Shannon moved around a lot. So for me, it was like, okay, I have the space to say, I'm not okay with this. I'm upset. I'm going to miss the house and then walk away from it like a boss was amazing. Like at the end of the movie, it blows up and you just walk away. So it felt better to say it's not okay and what I can do about it and the way I can get this frustrated energy out outside of things that would seem positive or optimistic, right? Running and exercise and rest and sleep, these things that they usually give you. It's no, I'm gonna beat the little tassels off of this pinata and then I'll feel better. And it was good.
Wow. Yeah, and it's okay not to be okay, right? Yeah,
Yes.
it's okay
Mhm.
not to be okay. That is a
Yeah.
gift to give folks, I think. That acknowledgement. Yeah, it's
Yes.
okay
So
not to
thank
be
you.
okay. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
thank
for
you for
giving us that.
I actually am in the process of making a cancer cell with my mom. It's a
Mhm.
big sort of spherical
Mm.
pinata with some like egg crate pieces coming off
Okay.
it, and then pieces of used masks, because of course
Mm.
masking is
Mhm.
a source of sore
Yes,
feelings in our family still. So
I hear you.
yeah,
And I
so
like the recycling.
right, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so I know from your website, Gwynneth, and from talking to you, that's part of your process, right? Is you create the pinata, and no shade to you, Shannon, because
Of
absolutely
course.
going and buying one if you need
Yeah,
one. But
yeah.
like that's part of your process, Gwynneth, as the art piece is creating it out of things. Because was it your first one you told us about that you created out of prescription pads?
Yeah, so the first one was, those stupid inserts that tell you you're gonna like turn purple with pink polka dots and, uh, have, I don't know, weird snot come out of your eyeballs or something.
From all the medication?
Yeah, those patient inserts are perfect for pinata making because they're kind of like paper mache weight. And so I just made a pill shape and filled it with pills and candies. That was a little bit of a trigger warning because when we had the big shebang and there were some kids there, and so we used it as a teachable moment about what how pills and candies can look alike and how we have to make sure that we know the
Mhm.
difference. But
Yeah.
that was a really important detail for me, that it be made like that every step of the process be part of my healing,
Yes.
and part of the concept too.
Absolutely.
And then I love is I think it's every one of your pity parties, but at the end there's still cake, right? As
Yes, there's
part of your
always cake.
process.
That's right. Yeah, if you'd like to hear, I do have I have 7 rules for my pity parties. They're
Yes,
Yes,
guidelines.
please.
please.
One is that there's only one lamenter at a time. So you have the host, and so the guests can support, but you don't add on. And then that every pity is welcomed, and there's no such thing as one too large or too small. And then there are no comparisons, and your pity is your valid pity. No comparisons. Lists are encouraged because sucky things pile up. Um, and you're not to give perspective. So no perspective giving. It's just woes suck. Period. No problem solving at the moment. My dad's a big problem solver. If I tell him like what's wrong, he's gonna fix it. um, it's just the time to emote. So, and the last one is that they're time limited, and you'll know when it's time to go home. But there's an end to the pity party, and you'll go home, move on.
I like that. And especially the space for your pity is valid, right? And not the, oh, well, so many people, no, I'm not trying to hear that doesn't make me feel better. Right. And then the, like you said, no solutions. That's great. I love when people care enough to try to help. But right now, this is what it's about. I like the focus.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Hello, Dr. Phelps. She
Yes.
says, I love the idea of incorporating art into healing.
Me too.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when we use it for our own healing, it anytime we are centering healing in ourselves, right, we are giving permission to others, and the guidance to others to use it as well. I find like I use a lot of my own narrative, and my own process is very much involved in my own story. And it's funny how when I get to that point where somebody looks at it and is like, oh, this is really connected to my story, that's the success. Is they forget that it's about someone else. They forget that it started with me. And so
Right.
healing is like begets healing. And I just think that that is like one of the beauties of art, is that you can just look at a story or an event or an installation, something like that, and when you forget that that was somebody else's nugget, and you go straight to like, oh, that touches me and that's mine, that's just really, really yummy, uh, yeah, it's almost infectious, right? It's
Yes.
viral.
Agree.
Yes.
Right? In a
I
good way.
yes. I think, and it's exponential.
Except that's exactly it. It's exponential, right?
Yes. And that's one of the things I love about it. When you talk about healing begets healing, I think about Tracy Reese's chapter in volume 1 of Women Connected in Wisdom. And she was talking about being authentic and being your full self, right? And post-traumatic growth. And I think that, like Christine was talking about at the beginning of the show, when we talk about socially, there is so much stuff going on right now. I, from a psychological perspective, really feel like there's compound trauma that could happen in situations, through information, through everything that we deal with, right? But if we know that there's an equal and opposite reaction, I also think that we can have compound healing and exponential healing and growth when we're interdependent and do it together. So I love what you're saying about the power of art. And I would love for you to say more about what we were talking about before we came on, and the social body, and how we're better together than super individualistic and leaning on our own understanding
Mm.
as individuals.
Okay, I'm gonna try to remember well, maybe not exactly, but what we were talking about. I don't remember what the nugget was. You
I
remind
got you. So you shared about the pain in your body, right? And so
me?
sometimes there's pain in our body, but then um, things that we can. Let's see if I remember what you said. We were talking about the pain in the body, and then the pain in the social body, and how instead of being super individualistic, if we focus more on the wisdom and the connectedness when we're all interdependent, then we could be in a better place socially.
It's so true. Yeah. Oh, we were talking about perfusion. Did we?
Yes,
Yes.
profusion. It was a new vocabulary word. I like it.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
That's the process by which blood carries oxygen to our tissues.
profusion.
Yes. And it's I was thinking about the magic of some of the things that my body does, despite some of the like horrific things that it does otherwise.
I hear you.
And actually, one thing I will acknowledge. So this is not silver lining
Okay.
painting. I hate that, right? But
Mm,
I will acknowledge that the things that my body doesn't do well, it does generally with well intention. It's just like confused.
yeah,
So like autoimmune issues and that sort of thing. It's really trying to protect me and itself, and it's doing its best given what it's got.
I hear
Uh,
you.
so the perfusion thing is just basically my gratitude practice of like, yeah, I'm in a lot of pain. This is really, really awful. And something just happened magical. I've got a kitty behind me too. I know.
Love it. Special guest.
Something magical happened that my heart just sent blood to my pinky toe. And this is the way the social body works too, right? Is that without being aware of it, right? Like I love the idea of exponential. Without being aware of it, we are in support of one another, and everything we do is an act of that support or impact. So we have to be careful what kind of impact. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's the interdependence piece. Oh,
I
can I
love
mention my dog?
I
Uh,
absolutely. I love that when you're talking about magic and interdependence, the cat walked across the back cabinet to where folks that are watching live can see the cat. I'm sorry if you're listening, you're missing this magical moment, but it was pretty perfect on timing, I have to say.
Gwyneth,
that,
what's your cat's name?
that's
Hi,
Jasmine.
Jess.
Um, yeah, she's a big part of our interdependence here, and I wanted to mention my dog
Mhm.
because if she were to bark during our session, I want to acknowledge and appreciate her for the ways that we are all flawed. Because, as I mentioned, my service dog passed, and she was fostered to be the successor to my service dog, and she quote washed out. So, in other words, she kind of failed, and
Mm.
it's really been a healing process for me to see that you can quote fail and not be a failure. And
Mm.
that's
Yes.
just been a joy to think about all the wonderful things she does for me and the
Mhm.
interdependence that we have. and that, she's still not going to be the dog that my other one was, and and that's okay. She's great at what she does. So
Yes.
yeah, I think about that as a metaphor for my own healing. Like, she failed and she's not a failure.
Oh, I
Right.
love that. I love that so much. And what's her name?
Mandy Mandela.
Mandy
Look, Cynthia
with the
gave you some little
paws.
puppy paws.
I
Uh,
love it. I love it. And I think that is so, it's just like the eight dimensions of wellness, right? You say that in context of one situation, but it's really relevant to all of them. And that's why I loved about what you said about the social body. There's this going on, but there's also good. There was this story that and again, and it's like every day, the crazy stories, about, and again, this is trigger warning, this gentleman that was locked up being eaten alive by bugs in the jail. I'm like, what is going on? You know what I mean? So we talk about social wellness. Things like this on a daily basis are disturbing, and we want them to be better. And I can come on and work with you, um, with Christine, and talk to amazing guests like you who have done so much work in helping people heal. And it's okay, I wish I could do something about everything, but if I can do what I can do, let me go talk to these ladies and get their voices lifted up and help them share their stories and their perspectives so they can reach more people and help the rest of the world. And even though this is not perfect or anywhere near where it should be for standards that I would like to see, just like we said, hey, this is a fail right here, but this is what we can do well. I think that that's one of my favorite things about doing Women Connected in Wisdom and talking to people like you, Gwyneth.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm really honored to be a part of that. What you're saying, and also what a horrific story, and it
Crazy.
makes me think of this work that they are doing in our school with art in prisons, and that
Mm.
is so that is
It's
going
important.
on. So hopefully that will spread, and yeah, boy, we want to talk about places that need healing
Right.
and systems that need healing.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe I mean, I see it everywhere, a need for it everywhere.
Absolutely. And I think that even when we're healthy, we know that we can have healthy habits and be disciplined in one season and then go to a place where we're not as aligned or not as disciplined. So even in the places where it's there, it's still needed. And especially in the other places, yes, I hear what you're saying.
Gwyneth, I want to tell you about pre-pandemic. I was going into Georgia State prisons
Hmm.
with an organization called Reforming Arts, and I was doing interplay
Mhm.
in medium to maximum security prisons. And I was thinking about this story earlier today, and like changing the world through art,
Hmm.
because I was in a, I can't remember at the time if it was medium or maximum, but I went through about six locked gates to get to my classroom, right? And you go through all the security, you go through all the gates, and I'm in the classroom and I'm doing interplay with most of the folks in there had life sentences. So they had done something that had gotten them a life sentence. And a lot of them were women or people who had been abused. And they defended themselves. And in Georgia, we don't have a self defense law. So they can get prosecuted for violence or for killing somebody, even if it's in self defense. And so we were in this classroom and we were doing interplay and we were doing the one hand dance. And you know how in interplay we do something and then we notice. And after we did this, I asked everybody to notice. And one of the participants who was in there for life, like, did not, I think without parole, also said to me, I noticed that I felt free. And it makes me cry even thinking about it, because here you are in one of the most oppressive systems and you are behind all these locked gates, and the power of art in this 2 minutes to give you the feeling of freedom, when that's really actually the opposite of where you are and what's happening in your life. It's just that power, right? The power to shift and change in that moment.
Mm.
I think about that all the time.
And I would challenge that though, is that because that's what we talk about, right? And Christine, I'm working through this for volume 2 talking about intellectual wellness and how do I combine the 8 dimensions of wellness with Claire Brumwell's universal needs or Maslow's hierarchy of
Mhm.
needs and how we think about those things. And I think that is art. For a second, she was free.
Oh,
That
absolutely.
is what she was, and I think that we can get there in different moments. Um, and to a certain extent, there's things that can't be taken away, So as long as you have
Mhm.
your mind, as long as you have those things, part of you is, I feel like it's genuine. It is free, and you feel it, and that's the only way that you can keep your peace of mind in the system that's trying to tell you everything else is different. I can still hold on to this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Wow. I would say my autonomy is something that gets challenged a lot as a person with a disability, especially medicalized
Hmm.
in the medical setting. I feel like obviously I have privilege beyond, I mean, I'm not incarcerated for life. I mean, that is, again, we don't compare,
Right.
right? I might,
No.
but I know that for me, my art practice does feel like a liberating practice.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I get to I get so many choices. I get every choice under the sun, right? I mean, like
Mm,
I get the rainbow choice, right? I mean, I can I can have the rainbow and the fringe, and I can beat it up, and
yeah.
Well
and
said.
I think another thing that makes me feel free when I do art is my sense of humor. Um,
Mhm.
it because you can't take that. That's a part of my spirit that um, has not been or can't be stripped.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
um,
love that.
So
Gwyneth,
important.
I have a question for you. Because I get this question often. I do a lot of community social work, and I'm so excited that you're getting your master's in social work and the combination of art and social work. So, one of the groups I do is with women transitioning out of homelessness. When we do interplay, we do an hour of interplay, and then we do an hour of expressive, creative, or art is what we do. And so, I am always working to talk with them about, like, you don't have to be an artist, like it doesn't have to be this perfect finished, because when people go to your website, they're going to see you, Gwyneth, are a talented artist, you have a degree in this, you are amazing. What do you say to those students that are just starting or that are using art to process and don't think they can do it because they don't see themselves as artists?
oh, that's my most exciting time. Oh, when somebody says, "Oh, I'm not an artist. I couldn't do that." Then that's me. Oh, pardon me, but I'm like, whoa. Like, we can take you to the dark side. Whoa. I'm
I
so
love
excited
that.
by that. Because what 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 they're really talking about is what in art school they call rendering, right? Like taking an apple and making a picture of an apple look like an apple. And who wants to replicate what we already have in life? That's not healing, and it's not good for the world. We have a lot of ills. Like, let's reimagine. So if your apple looks like something, the tip of your nose, fantastic. Let's talk about that and use that as a catalyst for something else. So that's thrilling. I love it when people say that, because that's the start of like when I was talking about we don't know what to expect. If you think that you already speak that language, then you're done, right? Because you but if we're all new in this language together, that's where. And to be honest, here's a little secret. I went to art school. I don't know how to draw an apple. I, I really. And most of the photographs on my website are in like real, quote, real space, right? With my cell phone. So yeah, you can be the best photographer and have like all this fancy equipment and whatever, and what does it mean if it's not serving you and your healing and your art practice? Yeah, great. I can replicate. I can make a postcard image, right? And so it's actually an interesting phenomenon. We go and we look for what we've seen, and then we try to replicate it. So You
Well,
go
what I
into
always tell
sparring.
my folks, I always tell them the only perfection comes from a machine. Like if it looks perfect, it's because it's been replicated on a machine. If you look at true artists and you look at and you go to the mute, like there's mistakes all over the like it's and they're not really mistakes. Like it's the art of it. And it but I think we get locked into our heads sometimes or our whole bodies sometimes about, oh, if it doesn't look like this person's or if it doesn't. So I love that you say that about creating something new and going for it.
I think it's really about colonizing. I mean, I think that it's a colonial, we want to, or imperial, maybe we want to impose our power to replicate on what we encounter. So that's why we call it shooting people, and we're going to go shooting. And that we have a lot of power when we have a camera in our hands, and so we have to be careful how we wield it. And when we go and look for that exoticism that we think we're looking for, or whatever, because we've seen it in the newspapers and magazines, and it's slick, and or we've seen it on the postcards. Man, I think I've taken a leap into another world in my thinking, but it does seem to tie into this idea of art as having a power to either heal, or we have to be
Uh-huh.
careful.
Right.
It's a very strong force.
Well, and I think also tied to capitalism and the fact that if it doesn't look away, you won't make a certain amount of money, and that art as a product instead of a process, right? That we can
Exactly.
use art as a process like powerfully, right? And it doesn't have to be about the end product. I mean, you can have an end product and that can be great, but the process itself is where the depth of healing and transformation comes. In my experience, like I've really found that. And it's like, yeah, it's art for the sake of arting.
And to go back to I'm still really struck, Shannon, with what you said about panning up from the butt up.
Yes.
Keep thinking about this, and
Oh, can't unsee it.
oh my gosh, I can't unsee it. Yeah, I remember seeing something about how we photograph, like, the news clips about the obesity epidemic in America. And I have some strong feelings about antibody narratives, and
Right.
yeah, and so I think a lot of times we'll show parts of people, and it's like chopping them up. It's like, and
Mhm.
when we show people, you know, in that sense, using it's really capital, commodities, and
Yes.
yeah, so commodifying the body like that
Right.
through art, we have to be careful. So how do we heal? We put our heads back on.
Right. Oh, I like that. And
Right?
make more art and get to new conclusions. Like you said, like this person was going for apple, they got to a nose. Let's talk about it, and I love what you said too, Christine, like the process on it made me think about the process on the artist side. I usually think about it on the spectator side. Like I'm in a museum and the three of us walk up, we all might see three different things and that's going to spark a conversation.
Hmm.
Totally, and I want to touch them too, and not just see the three different things, but yeah, what about I want to lick the painting and taste it
Willy Wonka.
differently, and
Yeah. All the
experience,
senses.
right? Yeah, we want to experience them in different ways. I want to know the way you want to approach it, and why and how. And yeah, isn't that is a neat thing about interplay, is getting to talk about one, like, the sensory experience, and
Yes.
processing it too. Yeah, that's a great place to
Mhm.
learn about each other.
Mm.
Hmm.
So, and I love that. And I love that both of you ladies do, both of you guys do interplay. I don't know if you know this, Gwyneth, but every week we do a wisdom in action. And we know that it's great, especially with you being a professor, right? And teaching across, is it across the world or in the United States? not that it minimizes it, because it's a lot that you've done.
Oh yes, my showing has been across the world. I just taught in Virginia, but yes.
Okay. I love it. So either way, global, right? We know that you can know all these things, but sometimes we don't put it into action. So for social wellness this week, what are you doing as your wisdom in action to be intentional about your wellness?
Okay, wow.
We can
You
go
sprung
first if you
that
want
one
us
on
to.
me. Okay, wait. I'm leaning in on this.
Okay, I need to think about mine too.
Okay.
Social
Um
wellness.
I think it's going to be an internal one.
Okay.
So, I have to stop driving this week, and when I take the bus, I'm going to not apologize to the folks for having to wait for me.
I love that.
Mm.
Not
Um,
apologizing.
yeah,
I
That's
know
it's
good.
you
hard.
know about this resource, Gwyneth, I'm sure, but The Body is Not an Apology. Do you know that
Oh
body,
yes,
that
yes.
book? And
Diane
yeah,
Ray Taylor. Yes,
right?
fantastic.
That makes me think about that. I
Yeah.
love
Mhm.
that. Shannon, what about you? What's your wisdom in action?
For social wellness, let's see. This week, I'm gonna say, ooh, hashtag get together, get it done.
Hmm?
And we talk about collaboration, right? Interdependentness. Me and Coach Co are meeting today. And of course, we're writing volume 2. So I'm working and collaborating with different people. So get together, get it done.
Mm.
Hmm.
I think mine is going to be hashtag art more.
I
Like
like
this
it.
conversation, I have been traveling, as most of our listeners know, and doing some
Yeah.
elder care, and I haven't really gotten to art and create, and I'm missing it. And spring always makes me want to create things. And
Mm.
so my hashtag for social wellness is going to be to art more this week. And
I
I don't
love
know
it.
what that's going to look like yet, but it's happening.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And I just want to lift up too, Gwyneth, before we let you go. One more thing I was thinking about when you brought up the panning up is um, there's two things that I've watched and listened to. There's this, I think it was on Netflix, about Brooke Shields and her growing up, right? And the modeling and everything with the jeans and her career. And then Paris Hilton and her story. And I was really interested to almost see how I felt tragic their story was, and I was surprised that I felt like it was so tragic because normally if you hear the stories or know whatever few details you know about these ladies, you wouldn't think that it's tragic, you know? But to be reduced to one part of yourself, whether it's your body or your beauty and not thought about for your brain and that was Brooke Shields' situation, right? She was so beautiful. Thought about how she looked and she was able to use that for what she needed for the rest of her wellness. But what did that mean as a whole person and her being seen as a whole person, right? And the same thing for Paris Hilton. Of course, people were, um, assuming that she has a certain type of life because of her money and who her parents were. But apparently she was shipped off to this school and they're like throwing kids against walls and stuff. It's crazy. And so, when we talk about situations and coming as your full self after stuff happens, artistically, creatively, and being able to play and be seen as a whole person and operate as a whole person, I love what you do and like everything that we talked about in this conversation.
Hmm. What a beautiful way to wrap all of those things together. That's
Thank
a
you.
that's a real skill. That is an artful thing to
Thank
be
you.
able to
Mm.
do.
I appreciate that. I think I give too many examples sometimes, so I'll still try to minimize some of the examples, but I will take the compliment. Thank you.
Gwyneth, do you have anything coming up that folks need to know about to connect with you, that you would
Yes.
like our listeners to know about, or
Hmm.
how to connect with you?
Yeah, so through my website I try to keep that up to date, vanlaven.art. And I am currently working to repopulate myself in medical settings. So I've been feeling really, really shut down. And so that's sort of my next body of work to look for, is yeah, just sort of how to be whole, like you said, how to be a whole person in a
Yes.
system that reduces you. So that's yeah, that's what to look for next. Yeah.
Woo! So
Looking forward to
exciting.
it.
Well,
Thank
we
you for
will put
joining
your
us.
website on our show notes. Thank you so much for coming on and having this very rich conversation. This was
Mm,
delightful.
yeah,
Thank
well,
you so much. Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
absolutely. See you soon.
Oh, so good. So good. It just makes me, it really does make me want to do more art
Yeah,
and use art as a process tool. And I go through periods where I do and then periods where I don't. So,
yeah,
and her, when talking about them talking about the, using about in the medical systems, I think about what I've just been through with my dad
yeah,
and the medical system and elder care and nursing homes and that system that needs to be shifted and how we could use art to shift that system. Like, oh,
yes.
all kinds of ideas are springing up.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, we can add the beauty and the joy. And when I think about you and how looking at beautiful things helps you, and creating and play, even though I've gotten away from my crocheting and maybe different things that I consider art and creative like that, even being close to you and talking about it more has brought more like playfulness and I think like artistic ideas to my life. So I
I
hear you.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that. All right, my friend, anything we need to give a shout out about before we close this show today?
Let's see. Let's see. So we're talking about women connected in wisdom. If you guys are interested, I know we talk a lot about the 8 dimensions of wellness and the books. We do have a few more slots for volume 2, right? So if you know somebody that you're like, listen, you got to be plugged in. They need your resource. They need to hear your story. Tell them to reach out to us at Gmail, Women Connected in Wisdom podcast at gmail.com, and we will get them added to the list and see if we're a good fit. We want to make sure that we lift up as many voices as possible. And volume 3 is booked and busy, okay? So if you don't get in now, it might be volume 4 in 2025, but we have plenty of space for you.
Right. I think the other thing I want to lift up is over at the community at Women Connected in Wisdom.
Yeah.
We are doing on our tier where it is women in business, we are doing a class on writing an incredible bio in
Yes.
250 words or less. And that's happening next Wednesday. So if you're interested in that, come check out what we're up to over there. And we'd love to get you connected.
Yeah. And I love that class. I think that, oh, I've got it. I need it, even though I have my bio and I know I need to tweak it. But I think about going back to work to Top Golf and Papado, like I was talking about last year, and how I struggle with introducing myself. Like, how do I want to introduce myself is a thing. So if you guys need support, come on over. And in the meantime, be well, be wise, be whole. We'll see you next week for episode 113.